How's it going, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the James Lab Podcast. And today our special guest is Jake from Romulan Genetics. How are you doing, Jake?
I'm great, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm glad you finally got to come on the show because we've rescheduled this a couple times. We've been talking about doing podcasts for years.
Yeah.
You've been in the breeding book. We got photos. Thank you for your photos. Thank you for your contributions.
Welcome, brother.
Thank you for your contributions to the industry. We met online. We met on Instagram. You have amazing photos. Right away when I saw your photos, I was like, man, this guy knows what he's doing as far as photography and with flower. Your growing is really good. And I love the way you breed because you've bred Romulan into so many other cultivars and you've really stuck with that. Whereas a lot of people are creating all these different F1s. You kind of had a game plan going into it. And, you know, Romulan is part of your history. So let's start with that.
I can't believe I'm still here doing that. Like I'm still here breeding Romulan and people actually liking it and buying it. And
people love it.
It doesn't make any sense to me, but it's working, you know? When I started out with this, I was just, I found myself like the steward and the caretaker of this cut that had been in my family for years. And I started giving it away and I ended up gifting it to Dark Heart Nursery and Dan got a hold of it.
Right.
He gave it to all the, legacy farmers and luminaries, all the people in the Emerald Triangle, and they grew it out for like a couple of years, verifying it and going through all that stuff. And I kind of thought that was like the end of the road for me. I just wanted to get the cut out, get it in enough people's hands. Dark Heart started selling it and they were selling thousands of cuts every week. And then I had people in Canada and Europe asking me, make seeds because I can't get the clone.
Right.
Well, I guess I'll buckle down and make some seeds. And it was all just kind of like a little side quest thing I was doing. And I made little labels and created Romulan Genetics just kind of like as a joke. Like I'm going to send these seeds out and this is it though. I'm done with it. I'm done after this. I had a great career. As soon as they got the seeds, they were like, oh, this is like the best Romulan I've ever grown from seed. Make FEMs. And you helped me kind of pinpoint down with some advice on how to get the FEMs made. And then as soon as I got the feminized stuff out, I'm like, okay, I'm done. This is it. And people said, make crosses. So I started making crosses and next thing I knew, it blew up, got out of control. And I retired about 2 or 3 years ago from what I was doing before. And I do this full time now. Freaking awesome. Love it.
Yeah. I mean, it's a beautiful place to be. I mean, some people, you hear different sides of the industry, but if you're passionate about it, it's a great time to be alive. Yeah. There is no bad time to be alive as far as I'm concerned, especially with cannabis. It's like with all these crosses and then to be able to go back to stuff like Romulan and Blue Dream, and you're even doing Blue Dream Romulan crosses, what I mean?
Yeah.
It's great. And I think working with some of these older genetics, they're very stable. What a lot of people don't understand is some of these older things, man, they are so much more stable. Blue Dream, if you self it, you get 4 expressions, right? It's basically 4 expressions, 4 different phenotypical and within that there's some other things, but like really
you'll have some outliers, but it's mainly 4 things.
But yeah, it's mainly 4 things, and then you'll get a dead ringer for Blue Dream, right? And I'm sure Romulan is similar to that, where it's super stable. Also, when you breed it, you'll get very uniform expressions too, and it'll help stabilize with other things. You can stabilize stuff.
Yeah, the whole Romulan thing for me was, one, it was my dad, and I felt like a little bit of weight. Dad had passed, and I got the cut, and I got to keep this alive. Once I started smoking it, though, it was life changing for me. It genuinely was. It was medicine. I got off at the time. I've got a bunch of nerve damage from my Marine Corps service and everything else. I was on 40,000 milligrams a day of gabapentin, which is a nerve blocker. Wow. So I could slice my hand open, grab a hot pan. I wouldn't even fucking feel it. It was really dangerous. Doctor said, you can never wean yourself off this. You can never get off this medication. People that get on gabapentin, once you cross over like the 10,000 milligram a day mark, there is no weaning off of it.
Wow.
And I would have these episodes of nerve damage pain where I would just, be bedridden for a week or 2 sometimes. And it'd be really bad. I'd feel like I was on fire. I feel like, it was ice and frozen. I'd feel like stabbing pain, all different types and just randomly all over, usually in my joints and in my hands. But like really bad arthritis was what it was like. And it would just hit me out of nowhere. Yeah. And for like 10 years, I didn't have much of a life. I worked from home doing electrical engineering. I couldn't really hold any kind of regular job. So I had to have something. I had a good career, thankfully, but it was really bad.
Yeah.
And I noticed after I, got through a couple harvests of Romulan and I'm smoking it, I would smoke some and it was like a special occasion weed for me because it was so good. And I wouldn't have an episode for like a week. And I started putting it together over time, told my doctor I want to get off this stuff, this gabapentin. And I got a plan. And she's like, you're going to fuck yourself up. You're going to be in the hospital. You're going to be back here. And 2 weeks, I weaned off the gabapentin.
Wow.
Just by smoking Romulan every day. And since then, I've kept smoking Romulan, started making crosses and everything. But I mean, I'm like back on mountain biking. I'm snowboarding again. I hadn't done that stuff since I was 25, 30 years old. So it's like I'm back to living life again.
Nice.
So there was a big part of me where it's like, there was a medical part to it where I wanted to kind of give this gift back out to people and help everyone. But the breeding side of it, I really enjoy the smoke. The breeding side of it, she's kind of like, I think of it, she's like a key, like a genetic key. So I can breed her with pretty much anything I want. Like 3/4 of the things that I breed her with, she'll open up in just a beautiful way. She'll make something brand new or, go off in this new direction type thing.
Yeah, it's not like Jack where you breed it with a lot of things and you come out with Jack, right? You can get different expressions certain genetics breed really well and certain genetics don't. And I think a lot of people, they'll breed stuff in and like a lot of the gelato stuff. With gelato, there's phenotypical variation and because they're not stable for one thing.
Right.
But, and you can only have so much gelato in your life. But with Romulan, I mean, I've seen some of your crosses and the way they express as far as morphology, man, some amazing stuff. You're across the board because Romulan is a hybrid, but it's definitely leaning towards the indica side of the hybrid as far as morphology, right? But it also, you get big, huge buds. Like, it's a big producer.
And that most people had Joe's cut. Joe Slikerman was what everyone knows as Romulan Joe. Most people have experienced his cut. Right. Not everyone has had the Vic High cut. They both acquired their cuts from people.
Yeah.
Vic High said where he got his. Joe never really told anyone. Over the years, I've talked to so many people. I talked to Sean, who was Joe Slikerman's best friend. You probably know Sean. He was one of the early High Times Cannabis Cup Seeds guys.
Right.
He was best friends with him through all that time. And he was like, he never said he bred it. He never really said where he got it from. But most people had his cut and they didn't really try the Vic High stuff. And the Vic High is like a dwarf sativa. Yeah. It's got hybrid effects. If you smoke a little bit of it, you get energy. If you smoke a shitload of it, it just puts you down.
Right.
I mean, just out. It's really, really good for that. I like it that I can have like half a joint, smoke a bowl of it in the morning, in the afternoon, anytime I want. I'm centered. I feel good. Yeah. But if I really want to get oversaturated, I just smoke a little bit more and I'm just fucking out of it.
Yeah, it's strong. It's always, it's been known for, I remember it from the 90s, right? Like 90s, early 2000s in the Bay. It was floating around. I mean, there was clones available of it. Ken from Beyond Bomb Extracts, I'm not sure what his clone company was, but I believe he had it. And there was access to good flour back then. In fact, I feel like the flour back then was better on average than the flour today.
Yeah.
A lot of people might disagree or whatever, but like from my perspective, I think there was a lot more passionate people and it was all craft. Back then it wasn't big 50 lighters. It was 6 lighters, 4 lighters, 10 lighters. 10 lighters was big back then. It was, there wasn't a ton of 10 lighters. A lot of stuff was like 6 or less grown in the houses or outdoor.
Right. Yeah. Most people were maybe in a garage. They weren't blowing up a condo on the beach somewhere. People were doing that in the 90s. But.
Totally. I mean, we had an 8 lighter. My business partner had 12 8 lighters when I had 1. So like it's one of those things. But now we got 100 lighters and 200 lighters and 1,000 watts or
40,000 square feet and all that good stuff.
Totally. And it's, we're in a different world, but there wasn't as much as far as genetics. There's thousands and thousands of crosses, right? And stuff available, names available. Mm-hmm. But as far as the diversity, there was so much more diversity back in the day.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't feel like I meet as many people anymore like I used to. I mean, I used to do interstate trafficking and travel to the farmers and pick up and stuff. And you'd meet people that had like this heirloom cut or they've had it for 10 years. No one else has it but them.
Right.
They bred it, their wife bred it, something like that. And it was just the most unique, different thing you'd ever, the smell, the effects, the taste, everything. You're like, what is this? And they're like, yeah, nobody else has that.
Right.
And I'm like going to give you a really small amount. Here you go.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're kind of trying to go back in that direction a little bit. I see a lot of people, even big name breeders that were breeding all this stuff are kind of going back to working with some of the older genetics, but everything's really become homogenized to a degree.
Yeah.
With the thought process of how do we move forward from this? So I think in Europe, the haze made their wave with the haze and then everything got homogenized over there and they lost a lot of diversity. We definitely lost it starting with cookies. I think cookies was really the beginning of the end in some ways for our industry as far as diversity in the United States. But then I look up in the hills, we go up to Grass Valley or we go up into the Emerald Triangle, and they're still cranking out amazing flower that's diverse.
Right. Yeah, I just not too long ago had a whole come to Jesus moment when I tried John's Whitethorn Rose, and
Yeah.
I had to hit him up right away and was like, what the hell? Where'd this come from?
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, it's been around. It's just, it's been quiet.
It's really good. I think the Whitethorn Romulan would be amazing, to be honest. I think that would be a great, great cross.
They have a similar kind of centering
I got
effect
something
to them.
special here, actually. The ZDP is my Whitethorn Rose. It's that was the motivation when we were doing the pheno hunt. I found this one plant out of the pheno hunt we did. We got a lot of keepers, right? Or a lot of stuff that we want to grow again and see how it does.
Right.
Maybe not winners, but definitely keepers. And within the progeny, there was one standout. This was just a far outlier that has the GDP floral along with the candy. And it also has the color too. So it's got that GDP color with that floral note that is very specific to GDP with a little candy hint on it. And so
a little sweetness.
Yeah. And I'm actually gifting this cut to John so he can grow it out and do some crosses with it. And I think I'm excited to collaborate with Johnny. He's really amazing. Him and Jason are doing, they're doing the Lord's work up there.
Yeah.
Still, it's really hard to do outdoor production or greenhouse production up there with the way things have been. So a lot of people have fallen off, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I feel like a lot of the guys that are still here are doing it because they love it.
It's a passion. It's in your freaking blood, you can't help it.
Yeah. And then when you see, in your life, when you see cannabis miracles, like when you're talking about being able to cut out gabapentin, I mean, it just makes it that much more real that you're on the right path.
Right. And one of the first things that I had of a cannabis miracle was this guy hit me up, and his dad, since he came back from the Vietnam War, had night terrors, just couldn't function at night, couldn't sleep in the same room with his wife, let alone the same bed. And they hadn't slept in the same bed since 1978.
Wow.
And he made his dad some Rick Simpson oil out of either my Romulan, I think it was my Romulan feminized seeds, or maybe it was a cross. Gave it to his dad, and within a week, they were sleeping in the same bed together, and he doesn't have night terrors anymore. I mean, it's like completely changed his life for the better.
Yeah. I
heard that, and it was like, there really isn't anything that I can do to help out people more. Me personally,
right.
What I was doing with electrical engineering, I was doing life safety design, architectural design. So it was like a protecting people kind of thing. And I've always been that way. I've always kind of steered towards that, being a protector and helping out. But it was like that. It was so meaningless. Yeah. It's a fire alarm system. Fuck, they'll find their way out of the building. This though actually changed someone's life completely.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I'll ever be able to do anything else again.
Yeah. I mean, it's so hard to argue that it, as far as I see it making the world a better place on a daily basis, right? So like I see this plant making people's lives better, improving the world, tenfold. And there's so many other things that kind of take away from it, but it's so hard to argue that this plant is bad. And I think there's still people out there that are like, the plant's the devil, the freaking devil's lettuce, all this stuff. But slowly but surely, we're changing people's minds.
Eventually, right?
Yeah, I think you only need to see one cannabis miracle to believe in it. You know what I mean? It's like one of those things, like whether someone has cancer and all of a sudden they can eat again, or it cures cancer. Right. But even just the fact that when you're on chemotherapy and you can take it and now you can eat food, how can you argue that somebody doesn't need it? It should be their choice. Or some kid who has seizures that needs CBD to relieve the seizures. How could you want to take that away from a child? I think that's just cruel.
Yeah.
Especially because it's a plant. It's one of those things.
Yep. Agreed.
So tell me about your father.
He was a badass. He really was. I miss him. He had his faults, that's for sure. He was born and raised in the 30s in Utah, and he ran away to go to Disneyland, stole a car and ran away and came to California. Never went back when he was like 14, 15 or 16. He always worked in the oil field industry, worked oil rigs and stuff like that. And at some point in the 60s, he started selling. He started selling weed, coke, LSD, pills, and it was kind of like a progressive thing, I imagine. Eventually, he was like entwined with the Hells Angels from the Ventura chapter all the way up into Vancouver. In the 70s, he was like the #1 drug dealer in the Tri-County area. He was kind of like a mini George Jung, if you know who that is.
Yeah.
He was selling weed to Fleetwood Mac and the Eagles and Michael Jackson. And he had all these albums that were signed, Thanks for Bringing the Party, G-Dub from the Eagles and all this stuff. And I grew up you know, in the late 70s around that. It was just a constant fucking party nonstop. He'd go to work and he'd get home. I'd meet him at the fence with a beer, even, you know, when I was like 3, and he'd get big beer and he'd come in and hit his bong, and then the party would start. People would show up, and it was like that every damn night, just about. But he was a really good guy. He was a protector. You know, that was what he instilled in me. He was the kind of guy where if someone went tearing down the street in the neighborhood hauling ass and the kids were out playing, he'd go find who that guy was and break his jaw. You know, it was just like, you don't drive like that with kids playing in the street. But he was a really good guy. But he had his faults. I didn't know until not too long ago that him and my mom hooked up. He was 36 and she was 16, 14, something like that. You know, it was a different time back then and all that. But hearing that now, I'm like, yeah, my dad was a fucking pedophile, like freaking out about it. My mom's like, no, it was different. Like everyone knew. It wasn't like something we were hiding, but it's still, you know, he had his faults. He did a lot of illegal shit, but he was a really good guy. Took care of everyone around him. Yeah. And I don't know, still to this day, don't know how he pulled it off, but he was entwined with like the early version of the Cali cartel, the Hells Angels, really dangerous people, high level drug dealing. And he just stopped one day. I don't know how he got away with it, but he just walked away from it all. Wow. I mean, our house got raided 2 or 3 times when I was a kid, and the phone would ring an hour or 2 ahead of time, and he'd clear the house out. Like he was getting tipped off that he was getting raided. He was at that high of a level. Wow. And I was across the street one time watching through my neighbor's window. You know, all these cops are coming in. And the last time he got raided, I think it scared the shit out of him. He forgot he had books of acid wrapped in, he had frozen meat in the freezer. Mm-hmm. And then you put, you know, aluminum foil around that, and then you put the acid sheets over that, and then another thing of aluminum foil. So you'd have to open it up to find them in there. They're not getting, you know, nothing's happening with the meat. And he was like, there was just, you know, 3 or 4 books of acid in there, and just one sheet would have been enough to throw me in prison the rest of my life. Yeah. So I think that was kind of like the, no, I'm not going to do this anymore. Wow. Yeah. He was, I mean, it was like 5 years old, and he's telling me how to, people come in the house, here's where you get the gun, and here's the gun in the safe. And if you're standing here and I'm opening the safe and there's a guy holding a gun, I'm going to pull this gun out and shoot him. So back up. And right. I mean, it was like 5 years old. I was learning a lot of stuff you don't learn when you're a kid. Yeah. Makes for an interesting childhood, though. Yeah, it sure did. And good stories. Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, and then your father's relationship with the Romulan. Yeah, so he, as part of that, he was growing in the backyard, and him and his buddy Clyde started kind of breeding and stuff. We'd go on these camping trips, like during the summer especially, where we'd drive all the way up to Oregon or Washington, just on the other side of the border of Canada. And there would be, you know, a shitload of Hells Angels. But the main crew that my dad would be hanging out with would be all these older veteran guys who had served in different wars and stuff. And this was all stuff that I kind of picked up being around him, and stuff we talked about when I was a little older. But they would trade seeds back and forth. And so this was like the early version of what ended up becoming Romulan, because Joe called it Romulan. But back then they were, you know, they all had like different names for it and stuff. And Pine Bud was one of them. But they were Canadian Korean war vets had brought back seeds of Korean Thai, which was probably just Thai, but who knows? And they were growing it up in Canada in the Vancouver, BC area. And because it was a Thai, they just had a shit time growing it. And this was before I think anyone was growing indoor, back in the 50s and 60s. And so they started like with this collective and the camping trips and everything. They started, you know, hey, I crossed it with this back home. I had this Mexican, this real good plant, and crossed it with that. Try these seeds. Here's the flower. And they were doing that for years and years and years. And Dad was part of that. He was, you know, this small little sliver. He didn't, some people kind of misconstrue things like, oh, your dad bred Romulan? No, he didn't at all. But he was a small slice of this bigger collective of guys who were trading seeds back and forth. Not really necessarily, I mean, it sounded to me like they weren't really intentionally breeding. It was just kind of like, let's see if we can make it easier to grow every now and then. They'd have something new to cross it with and see what happened. Yeah. And they crossed it with a Mexican sativa, and then a Colombian, probably red, Colombian sativa. Then Afghani showed up on the scene in, 79, 80, 81, something like that. And they crossed it with that, and they hated the outcome. And so they went and crossed it back, the result, to the Colombian. And it was just like eureka. That was everything. All of a sudden, the plant was a little shorter, much hardier, could handle the cold, didn't have this crazy branching problem where they had to support every single thing out there. Yeah. And then that was kind of their eureka moment for him. And that was what eventually ended up becoming Romulan. Nice. Yeah.
it's pretty wild that, you know, it's so funny because I feel like most people see the genetics today, whether it's the gelatos or the OG Kushes, and they don't understand the lives that touch that plant to get it to where it is today. And the Romulan's a great example of stuff that started, you know, 50s and 60s. You know, that's a long, long time ago. We're talking about 60 years ago.
How many people did it? Kept the plant alive, kept seeds.
We're all just stewards, right? At the end of the day, we're all just, you know, we should look at ourselves as stewards that are trying to pass this plant on for another 60, 100, 200 years. Who knows where it's going to go? But like, I think 200 years ago or 200 years from now, they're probably not going to look back and be like, oh, well, this person did this. There might be a handful of people that get some credit. Now with technology, a lot more people will get credit. But like, there's been people for the last 2,000 years that have carried this plant on. Right. And, you know, so we're really working on the shoulders of giants. Like,
we wouldn't even be messing with it right now if it wasn't for shamans and people, you know, 1,000, 2,000 plus years ago.
Yeah.
Most of the stuff that ended up, you know, it was semi landrace at some point, right? Mm-hmm. If it wasn't just full landrace, but people were working with it, keeping it alive.
Feral, completely feral, indigenous feral to stuff that went on the Silk Road and went all over the world, you know, I mean, from Egypt to islands, you know, Indonesia, and all over South America, Central America, and who knows how long it's really been there. We you know, I think we only understand it to a certain degree. So I think history we only understand to a certain degree.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one too. Yeah. I don't think we know back far enough. But same thing with the cannabis. We keep finding new things where they found, you know, some archaeological dig and they realize, oh crap, it goes back another 2,000 years now, cannabis use, or it goes back another 3,000 years. And then, so that date keeps getting pushed back further and further of when they think we were using it.
We just need some good time traveling now.
Yeah, right.
Go check it out for ourselves.
Go back strain collecting.
Seriously. Get the real landrace.
Yeah. Before it got all washed out.
Yeah. And well, and you know, I think there's a big confusion on what landrace really is. I think some people think landrace is feral and feral is land. They don't understand landrace is basically something that was purposely cultivated and bred for a purpose.
Right.
Right. So landrace from Africa was bred, whether it's for the drug use or for certain plants were grown for textiles. Right. And then we can take like cruciferous, like wild mustard, for example. 2,500 years ago, wild mustard was just wild mustard. And then they bred it into things like kale, things like cabbage, Brussels sprouts, broccoli. All these things are, they started out 2,500 years ago as wild mustard, but they were, they selected the plants that grew for the strongest leaves, the most beautiful leaves were things like kale. And then when they went for the bud structure or the flower structure, things like cabbage. And if you look at a Brussels sprout, it looks like a miniature cabbage.
Right. Right.
So it's pretty wild, like the history of
what we can do just by
Yeah,
intervening and putting ourselves in between things is quite a trip.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing over time what can happen to something, in cannabis. And we're just scratching the surface of what's possible with cannabis too. I mean, we have a great foundation, but the future is really bright too. And then as far as like where we go in the next 10 years with it, applying science to it, it could be pretty wild. It can be pretty scary to some people. And then, I'm pretty excited about some of the stuff and the possibilities. Once we start understanding receptors and cannabinoids and how they work synergistically, along with terpenes and flavorants or, thiol, sulfur-based compounds.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been like LeafWorks DNA, if you know who they are. I've been talking to a bunch of the, the science head side of it. And I love that. I'm a real nerdy guy anyway. But, they've already identified intersex markers. They've already identified a bunch of different parts of the cannabis plant that all of us right off the bat want to identify. And so, the future is really bright as far as that goes. It doesn't sound great to a lot of people as far as gene editing and things like that. But I think it's, ignorance gets in the way of understanding the value of things like that. And it's probably not really even going to be our generation. It'll be people, while we're still alive, will be messing with it.
Yeah.
But 100 years from now.
Well, and we don't necessarily need gene editing for everything. We can do data-driven breeding. And, it's like, and then AI can complement data-driven breeding by giving us a path, right? So like you have all your starting material, you have all the information there, and then you want to go from here to a specific trait. Yeah.
And no matter how far that goes, we'll still have people in a basement or a closet just breeding off of, tactile, visual, that kind of thing. And so we'll always have the old methods.
But you need the human aspect of it, right? Because it's so subjective, right? Well, quality from me to you can be completely subjective.
Right.
Right. I think that I might like Skittles and candy or gas, and then you might like sativa or whatever it is, right? It doesn't really matter, but it's subjective to the individual, and what quality is can determine, what quality is can change from person to person.
Right.
So, and location to location, certain places, like look at New York, they love sour diesel. There was a point where it was like OG Kush was LA, sour diesel was New York, and then the Bay was cookies.
Right.
And these things change over time. As they trend, quality can change. Like purple is an indicator of quality now, unfortunately, which I'm not a huge fan of the whole, because I feel like a lot of the phenotypes that are green, if you look at the phenotypical expression, the green ones have better terps or they're louder.
I got to admit, purple's got better.
It has gotten a lot better.
20 years ago, I would, if you pulled out something that was purple, I would have, no, I don't want that. No, thank you.
Yeah, like GDP was an exception, right? There was good GDP and there was Mendo perps, but a lot of the perp had it had flavor, but it didn't have a high, right? Like it
didn't have legs to it. That's what my complaint was. It didn't have legs to it, and the flavors were always like in the same territory.
Yeah.
You'd get the little minors, but
it was mostly floral.
Yeah.
Right? It was mostly floral and it wasn't strong. The Blackberry Kush, we didn't test for CBD. I wish we had that. Like we had testing back then, because the Blackberry Kush, the one that was up in Humboldt, is the one that didn't test high in THC. It was like CBD weed for sure.
Yeah.
And you would feel relaxed, but it didn't get, like I could smoke huge bombers and that stuff would not get me high.
One of the first plants I grew with a friend, back in high school, beautiful, just the most gorgeous plant. We're all just psyched, geeked out. And it gets dry enough and I'm over it, just me and him. And got this huge nug and we're going to smoke it. And we, it's weird. They were like, we smoke like an ounce, like to each one of us smoke like about an ounce. And we're just like, I am not high at all. And we didn't even know that was possible back then, but we must have had something that was just, had hardly any THC to it. And he's like blaming the light that he used. He didn't know what was going on, what happened.
Yeah, I remember back in the 90s, we had a guy that was growing and the stuff was really good. And it was like this lime green bud. And he had some purple and he had some lime green bud. And the thing is like from one harvest to the next, it was always a little bit different. I mean, a lot of people had stuff that was like slightly different. It was all craft.
Yeah.
But we had one time where it was like just missing the cannabinoids. It was like you would smoke it and it was like, how did this go from, and it looked the same, but it was like smoking CBD. We never even thought CBD back then. Now, if people were like, oh, that's probably CBD. And who knows, but like it completely changed to something that got you really high to something that got you a little bit high and then eventually not high at all.
Yeah. And back then we didn't know, at all what to think of it or what to call it. Didn't know what to blame it on. I remember that was a trip. He was selling, like QPs to people for $25 or something. He was like, just use it for joint fillers.
Yeah.
Tastes good. Just doesn't get you high at all.
Yeah. We used to have bubble hash back then too. That was really good. This was before all the dabs and before, BHO, before rosin, before BHO. We had good bubble hash back in the day. And keef. There was really good keef back in the day. Occasionally you'd find someone with really good keef, or we had scissor hash if we grew. We always had scissor hash.
Mm-hmm.
Still love scissor hash to this day.
Yeah, me too. I remember that back before Bubble Man made the bags, before we really had easy ways to make bubble hash. It was like, there was a point in the early 90s where you had to know someone that could get it from Morocco or someplace else. Just people didn't really have hash that much around here.
No.
And when I was younger, that was like, to me, it still is. I still think hash is just primo. It's the best version of what you can get. I still, if it's really good flour, I don't even want to fuck it up. I just want it as flour.
Yeah.
But if someone's like, hey, I've got this, and then I've got this full melt hash right here. Do you want that or this? And every time I'm grabbing the full melt hash, give me that.
Well, I feel like there's good hash varieties and there's good flour varieties, and some flour varieties do not make good hash, and some hash varieties do not make good flour. This one example is Gatorade Frost. And it's this new one my buddy's got, and it's special. Like the extract, it smells like Gatorade Frost, like literally the rosin straight smells like Gatorade.
Wow.
The flower is like, you get it a little bit, but it's not nearly as strong. And then it's real powdery, like the bud. When you grind it up, it's powdery, but man, it makes amazing extract. And so there's just, again, we have these things we're starting to breed in these different directions, like the Brussels sprouts and the cabbage, right?
Exactly.
So like, I feel like, that's the future too. We're going to really go in those directions even more so and isolate stuff that works well for those. Because a lot of the stuff now, if you look at the extract, a lot of people it's like GMOs or GMO derivatives, the papayas, the GMOs, the stuff that really dumps. And there's like all those within the spectrum. But now people are starting to get more stuff in those, and they're going to continue on that path for another couple of years. We're going to have some really special stuff.
Yeah, I've seen that myself too. It's, there's a lot of, I don't know what the number is, but there's a lot of breeders that their breeding line is focused towards rosin production, hash making, dumpers,
washing, dumpers.
Yeah. And I always kind of crack up when I see, I have a lot of home growers. I have like a group of 200 testers that are mostly home growers that work with me and help me out. And I see people growing different things, and they're like, oh, I just love this plant. And I'm like, I got to step back a little bit and not say, that was meant to be washed,
Right.
the breeder, everyone across the board knows that's meant to be washed, and, just take it that next step to, but it's, let everyone do their own thing.
Yeah. My Banana Z is definitely one of those ones that was meant to be washed. The structure is not complementary to good flower. It's very open bud structure, but that's great for washing. Right. And then bananas and candy, you can't go wrong there.
No.
And there's other Banana Z's out there. Mine isn't the only one, but my Banana Z, I believe, was the first Banana Z made in 2018. We made a bunch of crosses with it. So yeah, it's Banana Punch, Banana OG with Skittles.
Nice.
And I wanted to get regular seeds, and then so I turned it into regs, put it with the Skittles. We got a lot of candy. It's got the open bud structure. Some of the phenotypes, we're at F3 with it. We haven't gone too far, but with the F3s, there's some really amazing washers in there. House of Cultivar has pheno hunted a bunch of the stuff specifically for rosin. And then we put the cross on a whole bunch of different stuff. I think 75 different plants.
Nice.
So, but yeah.
Nice.
But the ones that are really amazing are all banana. So it's like you only need so many banana, right, in your life. There's only, and there's different types of banana too. So you can have banana cream, banana custard, candy banana, banana nerds or banana runts, those kind of terps. But there's only so many bananas that you need. It's like within each one of those things, it's like, how many colors of red do you need? You're a painter.
There's always more, but you don't need them.
No, you only need the best ones. And then it's like, are you just hoarding, or are you purposefully collecting stuff or adding stuff to your arsenal? But yeah, let's talk about photography for a little bit, because I feel like you've gotten into videography too with your videos. Yeah. But your photography has been amazing ever since I've known you. You've taken amazing photos. How did you get into photography?
So initially, my grandfather was a pretty famous photographer. He's got a bunch of patents and stuff. When I was 5, the rest of the family hated me because he was like I was his favorite. He came over and he brought me this old, point and click, and you can adjust all this stuff on it, adjust the f-stop and everything. And he taught me when I was like 5.
Wow.
And I was always a pretty bright kid and ahead of my days. So he taught me, and I messed around with it for like 3 or 4 years, but I was just a little kid taking just, little things. And I would go and bring my film roll to the little shack and get my pictures back. And I loved doing it, but I wasn't serious about anything. And then I didn't do it again. I started doing, breeding and all these other things. And people are telling, I was giving away cuts, and people are, you got to go and join this forum. And people in the forum are like, let me get a picture. I was just taking shots with my cell phone camera for a while. And then I bought just a cheap Canon Rebel camera. And that's most of the stuff, like all my early stuff was just with that cheap, point and shoot kind of camera. But I had a different way of looking at things. Grandpa helped me, and I got an artistic eye or whatever. I don't know if that helped. I really should have, in the early days, found a photography forum, took some lessons or something, because it's all self-taught. I just taught myself. I got a great camera now. I got really expensive lenses. I got full light setups like we have in here. And it's professional now, but I had to make like every mistake along the way multiple times over and over again before I'd realize, oh shit, that's what I'm doing wrong. I have the depth of field off. I have this off. So it was all trial and error. And it was just, year after year. Eventually I got into macro and I had like the little manual, you turn it, little macro stepper. Yeah. I was using that initially. And then I got, one that's a motorized stepper and will do it for you. And I've got a really great Cognisys one now. And I've got a rotary. So I'm doing all the video stuff is actually stop motion. It's single image each thing. And then I stitch it together. So I've got a butt on a little rotary and it spins just a tiny bit, takes a picture, spins a tiny bit, takes a picture, and just keeps doing that. With that, I can use any of those still images, but I can also put it together and make a video. That's been like the past 2 years I've been trying to figure out how to do that. And for a while it was, I was using like just a manual turntable trying to figure it out. So I was like, started with the grassroots, and get to the point where it's like, okay, I need professional equipment because now I figured out this step, and this step.
Right.
And I did the same thing with growing. I've done it with a bunch of other things in life where I like learning by myself. Yeah. I like making the mistakes that helps me learn more. If someone taught me exactly how to do it, I could do it over and over again, no problem. But I'll never know like the full spectrum.
Right.
I'll just know this little pie slice. And when you make mistakes, you're like venturing out over here to figure out what mistake it is. And you're learning all these other things. You're learning the full spectrum of it. So, with photography, that was a huge help because now it's I'm lazy about it now. I set the lights up really quick. I know exactly, and I move the lights really quick. I know exactly how to do it. Before I would be like 4 hours for a couple shots.
Yeah.
Now it's like it takes me 15 minutes of work and the camera just does all the work for hours. And I keep coming up and I change the memory card and start it over again. And it starts its little spin thing or starts the macro thing. And it's like almost effortless now. But before in the past, I was pouring sweat and didn't know what I was doing.
This sounds like my recipe for life. Make as many mistakes as you can and you'll understand everything in the future.
Yeah.
And sometimes I feel like when you're passionate, I always have lived a passion-driven life. So I'm always following my passions, whether it's weed or whether it's food or whatever it is. I follow those things and I do them because I love doing them. But also, making mistakes along the way is the best way to learn, is by screwing shit up. Yeah. It's maybe not the fastest, but sometimes, I think it's the best way to get full understanding. And it's great. It's a good life lesson. If you want to do something, just go do it. If you want to learn how to play the guitar, go play the guitar. There's nothing wrong with it. Even though you're going to suck in the beginning, and you suck at almost everything, right?
Yeah.
Whatever it is, whether it's photography.
Nobody's great right when they start.
Growing. Yeah. It's like, my brother, he had a green thumb, maybe started, early on, my brother had a green thumb, but like for me, it took a long time before I could grow stuff that was amazing, or even stuff that I considered was amazing. But I also had friends that grew really well where I could compare my stuff to. Mm-hmm. My first couple harvests were not amazing. They weren't right out the gate. They weren't great, but I really loved weed. I really loved flower. I really, really loved the process of cultivating, and I really wanted to get a good understanding of it. Yeah. And so I just kept on doing it, and I'm still doing it, and it's still something I love doing. And when it's not fun anymore, I probably won't do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm the same way. It's but there's something special about, a lot of people want to fast track their way to learning things. A lot of people want to get as good as they can right away. And I feel that I'm similar in that way, but there's also just something that's so much better that you gain. Like you learn so much about yourself. Yeah. If it's skateboarding or photography or whatever it is, you learn so much more about what you're doing than just the narrow band that you would normally experience if someone said, no, this is how you do it.
Yeah.
And you just go, okay, I'll just practice that until I get it right. When you're doing it off on your own, you're making like mistakes that professionals like, I've never heard of anyone even fucking doing that. Like, what are you thinking? And you're like, well, I don't know.
Right.
I'm just experimenting. And with that, you run into new ideas and new things. So now, that I've learned how to operate the camera, I learned how to set up the lights. I know all this stuff now. Mm-hmm. I'm still looking at it from that beginner point of view. I still have like a different eye for where the light should go,
right?
How the subject should be turned. And when you learn, the way to do it, it has to be like that. The light has to be here. Your camera has to be there.
Yeah.
There's no room for experimentation. This is how it's done.
That's the method. Yeah.
Right. And so, I'm in there now and I've got like, photo cells and a flashlight and I'm like putting a streak of orange across my picture because I want to see what that looks like, swinging Christmas lights behind it because I just want to see how it turns out. And that stuff I wouldn't be trying at all if I had just stuck to the book.
Right. Well, and growing's the same way, and same thing with breeding. It's like there's so many different ways to make feminized seeds. There's just you can collect your pollen in advance. You can use live plants. You can do a combination of the two, which is what I do. And I'm all about redundancies, but like there's so many ways to cultivate, and there's no wrong. I mean, there is wrong ways to cultivate.
Yeah, there is.
For the most part, there's so many just different ways to get really good results, right? That you can choose your own path.
Yeah.
I used to love those choose your own adventure books when I was a kid, you know, and I love that part of life where we get to kind of pick and choose to do things how we'd like to do them.
Yeah, I was hooked on those too. Same thing. Yeah, it's, I've grown a lot before in the past, but it wasn't until like 2017, 2015 where I started my own grows and doing it all on my own. And again, just fucking it up left and right and experimenting and trying everything.
Yeah. Over
the years, I've grown under every kind of light you can grow under. You know, I've grown indoor, outdoor. I've grown in every kind of medium just about. I haven't done DWC yet, but I've done everything else.
Yeah.
And through all of that experimenting, I've, found my way that works for me and is best for me. And a lot of it now is, my way before was, full 100% organic and under, CMH or HID lights and, no LED. And more old school way. And that's how I like my weed. It's what I'm used to smoking. I smoke just about every strain there is since the 90s.
Still, is that how you grow?
No. Now, because of breeding, I've steered towards I'm in cocoa. I can do, crop steering. I can all these things where my main focus is on making stuff that a home grower who's never grown before can knock it the fuck out of the park.
Yeah.
At the same time, I'm not just making for a home grower. I want it to be good enough to where a commercial guy is going to go, holy crap. I'm finding so many keepers. I want it good for everyone. But through my selection process before I release stuff, I intentionally grow them really, really poorly. I intentionally make most of the mistakes that new home growers will make. So I'm having temperature swings, RH swings. I'm
stress testing.
Yeah, intentionally bringing the EC up and down, back and forth, the pH up and down. And I want to push the plants to right the edge of dying or going full intersex on me. And I want to see which ones I should never release. That's my whole point. But if I put something through just absolute hell, I mean, I take plants outside, put them in the forest, bring them back in the grow room so they're filled with thrips and leaf miners and everything else and just let the pests go. I want to see what's the worst case scenario with this strain.
I don't do that, by the way, but I'm glad you do. You're doing the Lord's work.
Yeah.
That's wild.
I'm a fucking maniac with it.
We have a sterile facility. We try to keep this place as clean as possible.
Yeah. I didn't bring anything with me, I promise.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I push them to the point where I can decide, about a quarter to half of what I make gets released. Yeah. And it's through that process where I look at a plant and go, okay, that survived and it didn't harm or anything. That's great, but it's shit weed.
Yeah.
And I want someone to just make every mistake possible and still end up with something that they look at and go, oh, I'm really proud of this. This is so good. You and I might be like, I don't want to smoke that. But they're really proud of it, right?
For sure.
So I want something that's got that survivability, that's got that resilience, and can handle those things. So that's why now I'm in cocoa and salt-based nutrients with reservoirs that I can alter on the fly. I can, I'm doing everything in my house, but it's like a commercial facility shrunk down in my main testing room and growing room. So I can alter stuff really, really quickly, easily, and put the plants through their paces. So that way I know this stuff there's no point in releasing this. It sounded really great to me. I was really excited about it, but
yeah, people don't understand that like the breeding, the real magic is in the pheno hunting and in the selection process. And a lot of stuff on paper looks great. I think in life, it's that way too. It's like so many things sound good. You put this with this and you get this. It doesn't work like that with cannabis. You're talking about recessive traits. You're talking about dominant traits. And if you don't know the lines really well, it's kind of a crapshoot, right? Like you can have stuff where it's like, man, I didn't even know that would express, but because we have recessive traits on both sides, now we get expression.
Right. Yeah. Even the stuff that, I'm excited about, I've planned out ahead of time. I know I'm going to, this cut and this cut are going together and that's what I'm going to do. It's still only like, at best 1 in 20 of those where it ends up like you imagined. Most of them. It's totally different.
Right.
You have this idea in your head. And like Romulan, I bred with it so much, I know what to expect from her. And I've got certain things I can breed her with where I already know the flavor profile before I've bred it. And it usually comes out correct.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that it's going to be worth putting out into the world.
Right.
You know, as breeders, I've told my friend this, and he's like, oh, I want to get into breeding. And I'm like, why? And well, I want to be famous one day. I want to be really well known. And I'm like, don't. Just don't.
Yeah.
You don't understand what this industry is. It's totally different. But most breeders, our work with time just disappears. We disappear, we die, and our work is gone.
Right.
Nobody has it anymore, and it's gone. There's only a few select of us that we can't even really be part of the equation where the community says that plant, that cut, we want to keep it around. And you almost have no control over it as a breeder. It's just what hits with the people and what doesn't. You know, some breeders put things out on their own, and that helps. But
this is devotional anyway. And it's like one of those things where you do it because you love doing it. You put it out there, and the world either accepts it or it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
It'll embrace it, you know, certain things. You know, I've read a lot of stuff that's out there that'll probably be out there forever that I may never get credit for, but it's not even about the credit, right? So like, I've done contract breeding, there's a lot of amazing stuff, and it's still devotional for me, and I do it because I love doing it, and I'm going to continue doing it as long as I love it. And it's just an amazing thing because we're stewards, and we're able to take this plant from where we got it and move it along into the future. We're just one small piece of this plant's progression.
Yeah, I very honestly feel, not to be like, you know, hippie or spiritual or anything, but I feel like the plant chooses us.
Yeah.
Like picks people and is like, I'm not letting you go.
Right.
Like you and I will probably never be let go of by cannabis.
No.
And there's some people out there that that's part of you forever. Some of them grew up with it. Some of them found it later.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up around it. You know, I was in my diapers playing underneath it and around it, but it hit me around, you know, 7 or 8. It was like this light bulb. I want to get High Time magazines and start reading them. Yeah. And then I had them, and I want to be a breeder when I get older. And I forgot about it as I grew up. But there was this period, you know, when I was a kid, and now here I am. And I already kind of had my dream career before this all started. And once I started really getting into this, it was like my dream career was nothing. Like it was so meaningless. Yeah. And I'd built this whole company up from the ground up. And I was, you know, working jobs where I'm making 20 grand plus in a week.
Yeah.
I didn't care. I'm going to go and maybe go broke, maybe end up homeless, because this is what I want to do. It's what I've always wanted to do.
Right.
And, you know, but going back to telling my friend, you know, he's got these grandiose ideas in his head of what being a breeder is. And most people don't understand that part of it is like your work as a breeder, whether it's 5 years or a year or 50 years as a breeder, most of it just disappears. Yeah. It's not what you think. It's not like you can make a cut and you give it to the community and the community goes, oh yeah. And then it's around forever.
Well,
that
and
happens
a lot of it's
with some
not
people.
Even original.
Right.
You know, that's what a lot of people don't understand. They're thinking, well, I made this because I crossed this with this. And that doesn't mean that it's genetically that different from so many other things. You know, it's like hard to make something original.
Right.
It's very hard to make something completely original. And, you know, and there's people that have done it, but we're still also working on most of the hard lifting and the heavy lifting was done in like the 60s and 70s.
Mm-hmm.
We're able to, you know, work off the fruits of the labor that was done back then.
There are very few of us sifting through, you know, 18-week sativas and spindly little things and trying to get that down to something a little more smokable. And
I mean, you had to have some patience,
mm-hmm.
you know, and there's still some guys doing it. Yeah. I look up to these guys like Simon from Serious Seeds. You know, it's like he's done the real work. He made real true F1s. You know, I haven't gotten to that point where I'm making my own F1 hybrids. And that's where I'm going to get, right? Like in my lifetime, that's my goal.
That's I've got similar. My goals are not lofty.
Yeah.
It's you know, like it's very base level. Like a lot of breeders are like, I want to make this or that. And I'm like, I just want to get through breeding stuff with Romulan for fun.
Yeah.
Because what I've been doing for the past 8 years as a breeder is just like everything else I talked about. I've been experimenting and learning along the path. I feel bad for the people that got my first crosses, even though most people love them. I look at the early stuff I made. I'm like, oh, shit, I didn't know how to test it properly. I wasn't doing the right work back then.
You did have good foundational genetics though. So at least on one side, regardless of what else you crossed from. I mean, I think that's a great starting point that a lot of people have missed. A lot of people are taking these complex polyhybrids that have 50 different things in them that are genetically unstable, and they're crossing them with something else that's completely genetically unstable that might even be related to the thing that they're crossing it with.
You start looking at their root parents and they're all,
a lot of people do this thing called breeding that they think is making an outcross, but really what they're doing is inbreeding. It's like if you take gelato and cross it to Sunset Sherbet, it's like you're making a back cross.
Right.
So, but a lot of people are like, oh, I just made this new cross. And it's like, that's not an F1.
It's not even how it works.
That's not how it works. And there's so many things out there where people have crossed this together with this, and like they cross siblings together. Like you cross Gelato 33 and Gelato 41, it's like you're not doing the work like you think you're doing. And the thing is like, even with the naming conventions of genetics, you don't know what it really is. So someone could give you Gelato 33, but tell you that it's, whatever.
Right.
It's purple Jagu.
That's funny. You're hitting on one of the things that's been like, stuck around, and I wasn't planning on it. But when I released my first batch of Romulan seeds, they were regular seeds, and I was working off an old batch of seeds that were like F4, F5. Mm-hmm. I hunted a male and a female from that and made regular seeds. And at the time I was like, I don't want to touch my family's cut. Like I'm not worthy, mm-hmm. I'll try to make fems with it, but I don't even want to fuck with that. So I'll pick a female and I'll pick a male out from these. And I made reg seeds and I put them out there, and I had all these guys who've been growing a long time, and they're like, it's literally the best Romulan version I've ever grown ever from seed. It's so good.
Wow. Make
more. And I'm like, okay, well, I didn't keep that female around, so I can't make more of those. I got to make a different version now. So I ended up making it with my family's cut and the same male I had selected for the first batch. And I make them, and I'm like, okay, well, what do I call this? And I would start thinking about I get some help from a friend, and he goes, well, you took an F4, F5, and then an F1, they're related. That's an intergenerational cross called an IX. I go, okay. So I go and Google it. Nothing. And I'm like, well, if I call this an IX, what's going to happen with the community? Like, they're not even going to know what an IX is. And there are people like you out there, but most of my customers so I would just get bombarded every day with what's an IX1. So I released it. The name of the strain is Romulan BX1.
Yeah.
And then it's an IX1. And that nobody asked me any questions. And I'm still laughing about it. I've explained it thoroughly to everyone. I was open about what it was, that the BX1 is just in quotes. It's literally the name. It's Romulan BX1. But like nobody had any questions after that. And there was a few breeders that came to me and they're like, why is it BX1 in quotes? What are you doing? And I go, well, it's an IX1. And you can see on the packaging, you can see on the seed listing, everything says, intergenerational cross. But if I just put it out under just that, no one would know what it was.
Yeah.
And at the time, everyone was calling everything a back cross. Everyone was putting out these BX1s left and right, and none of them were back crosses. And I thought it was hilarious. I'm going to make this little inside joke and call this a back cross one.
Right.
And, it's the people keep asking me for more of those seeds, and it's stuck around to this day. And I got to explain more what the back cross one quotes is than I would have had to explain what an intergenerational cross is.
So it's funny because I got an interesting story around Romulan and Shaman. My buddy had it back in the day, and it should have been called the Shamulan, right? Because it was Shaman crossed with the Romulan back to the Shaman, right? So it's like a Shaman BX1, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he called it Shaman. And so if somebody has the real Shaman out there that we had back in the 90s, I believe it was Barney's that had a Shaman. It wasn't Greenhouse, but it was a European cut.
The Shaman I've heard of and I know about, but I wasn't real familiar. Like the Shram was something I came in contact with, but not the Shaman.
So anyway, if somebody out there has the Shaman or has a Shaman, I would love to get it so we could work on this Shamulan project. And, I love the nostalgic stuff, throwbacks where like, can we recreate it? We're trying to recreate the cat piss right now. I'm looking for cat piss. It's like roadkill skunk expressions. Like, we didn't have roadkill skunk as far as I knew back in the day. We had skunk. We had some skunky, really, really skunky weed that would smell a whole room up, just one little small bit. But so if somebody has a Shaman, reach out. We got Mr. Romulan right here. We can make some amazing crosses. I feel like those kind of projects are fun. So if somebody really has it, but the thing is like, just because it's called Shaman doesn't mean it's Shaman. Just because it's called this doesn't mean it's that. Phylos was one of those ones where there was 97 things in their galaxy that were all OG Kush with different names.
Right.
So.
And it was all exactly the same.
It was all genetically identical.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of problems out there in breeding. I had no idea what I was getting into coming into this. I like had this whole You know, we're a community, and from being a trafficker and picking up from farmers, you know, I knew how people treat each other and what to expect. And I had no idea getting into the breeding side of it, which I had never been involved with at all, of just how much fuckery there is, and just left and right.
Oh yeah, people taking credit for other stuff. I try to give credit where credit's due. Somebody made a cross, I use their stuff. The thing is if I bought your seeds and I made seeds with your seeds, you sold those seeds. If somebody buys my genetics and makes seeds, I'm actually happy. I love it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like there's guys who bought my stuff and don't give me credit, or they'll call it the cross rather than the name that I gave it.
Mm-hmm.
They'll call it the cross, and whatever. I mean, I don't care. But the thing is what I think is funny is like guys that get butthurt when other people use their genetics to make crosses. It's a joke. It's like you sold those seeds. If you gifted them, that might be a different story.
Yeah, it's not like I broke into your bedroom and stole a cut from you.
No,
you know? Yeah.
You made money off those. That's the whole purpose of pushing the plant forward, you know? And it's like, people get like it's their possession, like they did something special, and like nobody else should be touching it. Even though you bought it, you should only be growing it out. It's like, that's a little pretentious.
Yeah, no. And that's like, for me, that's where it comes back to whatever I do in my mind is going to disappear. If I have a few things that I've made that stick around, great. But I encourage people to breed with the stuff I make. I want to see other breeders work with it. That to me is like the highest level of honor, you know, or the highest level of where I can be as a breeder. When I saw breeders years ago starting to, without involving me, buying my seeds, hunting cuts out of it, and then breeding with that, and then giving me credit.
Yeah.
And to me, it was like when I first saw it come up, I was like, what the fuck? I'm fucking nobody. Why would you breed with my shit?
Yeah, I feel you. I mean, I think there's this entitlement thing with the industry. Pretty good, right? Like, so when I first tasted it, the thing is when
I can taste them both.
Yeah.
Definitely have the GDP. We've got that flavor right in the front.
Right.
And then I get this sweetness Z at the end.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it is out of the whole group of seeds that we hunted of this cross, this was the only thing like this.
Really?
Yeah. The other ones either lean too heavy towards one or the other, and not in a good way. Skittles really fucks up the structure of most plants. People don't understand. It's like, the structure is terrible. Most people don't want to grow Skittles. Like, the reason there's not a lot of Skittles, or the reason it's so expensive if you do see it, is because nobody wants to grow it. It's an ugly, finicky plant that doesn't like being grown. Mm-hmm. That basically flips you off the entire time. And it's really interesting in that sense. But when you breed with it, the stuff that has the real skittly structure, the stuff that's really candy, the stuff that's really skittly in taste, all leans to that structure. So it's really hard to find stuff that has better structure with that candy profile.
Right. Right.
Every once in a while, I come across something that is a disruptor, whether I bred it or somebody else bred it. There's stuff out there where it's like, okay, this is something that the white thorn people can attach their palate to, or they're like, oh yeah, that's really, there's a lot of people that like white thorn rose.
Right.
Like, that is huge right now. Like,
yeah,
I bet it's bigger than they ever thought it would be. You know, it's because it's one thing, it's like you share it and it's good, but then like when everybody's talking about it, literally everybody everywhere in the I don't know about in the United States, but definitely in California.
Yeah, I got in kind of early, and one of John's buddies, Tangled Roots, he's in Grass Valley. It's not far from me. I went and met up with him, and he's like, so let me guess, we're meeting because you want to make a cross with Whitethorn Rose. Wow. And I was like, no, actually, no. I mean, I do, I want to, but like, that's not why we're meeting. Totally. That wasn't my plan. Was I want to shake John's hand. His story hit with my story. It's almost identical. Yeah. His is his mom and mine's my dad. And then I smoked Whitethorn Rose, and it reminded me so much effects wise of the Romulan that I was like, I just got to meet this guy and shake his hand, you know, and wish him the best of luck. So it really wasn't about making the cross, but I kind of kick myself in the ass now, because if I had taken the time to kind of finish that out back then, now everyone's blowing up, and you know, I'm sure he's like, I'm doing this with his phone.
Yeah, I think Whitethorn is really special, and really the effect. So yeah, you know, I talk about it on my podcast a lot, going back to breeding for effect. It's like, so that's a really normal part of my daily conversation with everybody, is breeding for effect. Like, how is this making us feel? You know, being a chef, I really have focused on flavor over the years. Like, it's been a flavor until like last year, halfway through the year, I really started refocusing myself. Like,
That was when I first heard you start talking about effects, and you always talked about flavors before that.
Yeah.
And it was like your primary focus.
Totally. It was flavor. Or being a chef, I love flavors, right? I love talking about flavor combinations, flavor pairings, and all these things. But really, when it gets down to it, like if you break this all down, we're here for the effect of this thing, of this plant. And I feel like the effect is so important. And going back to stuff like when you're doing big, large scale pheno hunts where it's like 600 things, you're not able to smoke every single last one of them, but you can give them out to enough people to where you can get a good percentage of them. And then there's some stuff that has bad structure, bad smell. We had some vomit smelling plants. I thought that was really wild.
Yeah.
Like I saved those just so I can show them to people like, dude, like this is what you can get with a pheno hunt.
Mm-hmm. Stuff that you don't ever want to smoke. It's just that nasty smelling.
Well, and the funniest thing is like, I had to smoke it because it was so funky, bad smelling. I'm like,
you got to see
I had to. There was no way around it. I'm like, I got to smoke it. I got to, it's part of the research and development. Like, how does this make you feel? And it got me high, but not in a good way. Like the high was about as bad as the smell. And it was like, kind of like curry vomit.
Yeah, it's got you where you don't get any of the visuals, but you have all the weird side effects like of mushrooms or acid or something. You just skin crawling and feel terrible. Yeah. As
far as like Instagram, social media, like, I mean, we've both been doing this for quite a while on social media, with Instagram. It's like, it's such an interesting thing. And it's like, it's not the real world. A lot of people think they live in this Instagram world. I think that's the world. And it's like, you know what? That is their own, it's its own little world, but it's not the real world. Right. In the real world, it's much different. There's always going to be haters online. I feel like if you're doing something right, when you have haters, you definitely mean something to somebody.
Right.
And so, it used to get to me a lot more, the haters. And it's like, I just realized that, especially recently, I came to the conclusion that I'm just moving forward. It's like people are going to hate. They're going to hate on you if you're doing good. They're going to hate on you doing bad, whatever. But like, it's not reflective of my life goals.
Yeah. Yeah. I have only recently had an epiphany and moved forward in that area. I was just constantly losing my shit online. Like I couldn't go on. I could post and then I had to like walk away. But I've always been like, I'm going to actually communicate with people and respond to comments and respond to DMs. And I'm going to be engageable, because a lot of breeders out there, like they've learned not to, because it's actually really, it's really problematic. If you're actually communicating with the Instagram crowd and the Twitter crowd, like they become your customers in a lot of ways, but it's problematic, right?
Sure.
I do it all the time. And in the past I run into a hater or whatever, and then start trying to, I lose my cool kind of thing. But I would always I'm just trying to explain myself, like you've got the wrong idea. Let me give you my story.
Sure.
I'm now at a point where I'm like, I'm just going to let them do their thing.
Yeah. I don't give a shit. Haters are going to hate. Ainers going to ain't.
I realized the people, the ones that got to me the most and bothered me the most, like if another breeder in the industry was like, fuck this guy over here, Romulan genetics, fuck him, and he's talking shit, whatever. And I don't even know who he was. I just respected his work until that moment. I realized a lot of them were coming from a point of they hadn't really done any research. They had heard me say maybe one thing and didn't know that that's changed or whatever. And they set their mind to it right there, and they're just now talking shit down the road. I don't have time for that. Nobody really has time for that.
Nobody really doing the real work has time for like that kind of bullshit. And it's like, and the funny thing, it's not going to slow me down. And, some of it's motivational too. It's like
over the years,
it motivates me to be the best I can be. You know what I mean? And it's like
the biggest haters pushed me forward more than anyone else.
Totally.
When I was, first getting into this.
Well, and the thing is the best way to deal with haters is not to try to reason with them, because you can't argue with a fool, right? At the end of the day, you're not going to convince most people of anything different. It's like, sometimes there's someone I respect in the industry. I'll reach out to them. Like sometimes I have their phone number. I'll reach out to those guys and be like, yo, this is what's up. You got a problem with me? Talk to me. But none of these haters would say shit to my face. And it's like, come say shit to my face if you got a problem with me. But it's just, it's one of those things in life, as you become bigger and you get more in the spotlight, there's going to be hate. It's like one of those things.
That doesn't bother me. What does bother me is it's kind of growing and increasing to some degree is when you start having people impersonate your company, your brand, and they're making fake accounts.
It's
and
the worst.
Just scamming people out of money.
It's
usually the dumbest stuff. And I'm a fairly smart guy, but I get not everyone is fairly smart, right? So when someone tells me their story and I'm like, you fucking idiot, how did you fall for? I gotta like stop and be like, okay, didn't happen to me.
It's so shitty. But we had somebody spend like $900 on seeds and breeding book and all kinds of other stuff from the website, not from our website, but they thought they were buying it from us, right? And they sent this guy money, and it was like, these guys are so good. Some of them, where it was like, oh yeah, just send me $300 for those packs, and then it was like, oh dude, I'm going to double the deal and give you more seeds and all this other stuff if you send me 500. And then after that, it was like, oh man, it's stuck in customs.
You got to pay more
for
shipping and the insurance. Yeah.
And I felt bad, and I ended up sending the guy a book and some seeds because I just feel bad. But typically, it's like, man, it's just so shitty that there's people out there creating these fake accounts too that are just trying to scam people with Telegram and stuff like that. It's like the only way to buy my seeds is basically through our website, North American Seed Company. We're working with broccoli.lu. And I think we're just doing mostly direct, right? You can get our book on Amazon. You can get it from Khalifa. If you're in Europe, you can get it from Khalifa.
Nice.
From Khalifa Genetics. That's my boy over there. But like, we keep it small, and it's like, I'm worried about counterfeits. We've changed our packaging now, and it's like people knocking off stuff. It's kind of crazy. People will knock off anything.
Yeah, no, I actually saw someone else. I don't know if it was Chris from Compound or someone years ago that dealt with some counterfeiting of their seed packs. Yeah. And I was like, I'm going to just nip that in the bud now. And I've used Can Verify labels, but they're made with my logo on them.
Right.
They're all, you can scan it and it goes right to you can't fake that. You can't, because it would be a different website. There'd be things with it that would be wrong, even if you went that distance. So I got that secured up years ago. Every pack I've got has got those on them. Even the freebie packs have this little QR code thing on there.
Nice.
Right now, it's bad enough that we have people who impersonate and they use Telegram, but most people out there have learned that. It's like I'm the Saudi prince and email, give me your money, only $500 and you'll get 5 million. Most people have learned about that by now, but not everyone has.
Yeah.
So there's still people that get scammed, and that's why they keep doing it. But for me, it's like people recognize it right away that that's not Romulan genetics, and they come to me and, oh, there's another guy faking your account. And I've got an LLC and everything, so I can go and ask Instagram to take it down, and it takes a little time, but
totally. Well, and it helps that you're accessible too. Some of the guys are not accessible online, like even the brands and companies, and some of these guys don't even run their companies anymore.
Yep.
It's like, big shout out to DNA Genetics. Those guys still run their company.
Right.
It's
I've had countless people hit me up that are within the industry. I'll make your seeds for you.
I'll make your seeds for you.
No, I make them.
Yeah.
I grow
you
them.
You wouldn't believe how many people I make seeds for. Yeah. And I've made seeds for over the years that it's like, cause I can make them cheap enough typically to where it makes more sense. Like, I've done that. That's where, like, I used to charge $1, and now, it just depends on volume. Right. But like, these guys can still run a business, with other people producing their seeds, but it's like, is it authentic?
I wouldn't. I'd be losing my mind thinking about the quality control. I know what I do, and I know no one else is going to do that. No one else is going to be underneath almost every plant every day for the first 3 or 4 weeks while you're making seeds in a room to make sure there's no herms, there's no cross-contamination. No one's going to have that bugged out mindset that I have.
Have you tried under canopy lights yet?
No, but yeah.
You have thoughts on those?
Oh, yeah.
Negative thoughts?
No, I've been looking into it.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to send you home with under canopy lights today.
Okay.
So to test out in your tent. Some favens.
I guess
I got a couple extra favens.
I'm getting a new electric panel, I guess. That's my main issue. I'm maxed out. I need to bump up the electric service at my house.
When you can run 1 per 4x4 or 2 for 4x4, but as far as seed production, now, on the bottom, you get a lot of lighter seeds.
Mm-hmm. I just cut those. I'm tired of
completely
having to sift through that. Yeah, I cut the branches off at the bottom.
Yeah.
Get rid of them. I've got you've got a really big machine. I've got the smaller version.
Yeah.
It just, everything's the same. It just doesn't thresh as much.
Right.
So it does really good. But yeah, I've learned over the years to like do it in a way where there's less work at the end of sorting the seeds. And so I just cut the bottom branches off. Now I won't have to.
Yeah.
But that's why I'm limited. If one plant I'm already limited really heavily in space, really heavily. But for me, I'm really happy if off of one plant, I can get a couple 100 packs of seeds or a little bit more than that. To me, that's like a real good day.
So on average,
if I don't have to cut the branches off, I'd probably be getting, another 100 packs or something out of it.
Oh yeah. I mean, and all that's for the same amount of, a little bit more electricity, right? So
right.
Your inputs, you might spend a little bit more on inputs, maybe a little bit more on dehumidification. Electricity, energy might be a little bit more, but it still pans out to more money.
Right.
So, and I think the quality is just as good, if not better. The flower, especially from under canopy lighting, is pretty impressive. And just the increase in yield. And if you can increase the seeds, we're doing a trial right now with under canopy versus light lift, dialing in the PPFD from above and below, and then the combination of the two.
Nice.
So it's going to be a fun one.
Nice. Yeah, I'm looking forward to. Right now, I'm doing it at my home. Very small. I've built a room from the ground up and built a whole building on my property to do it. It's a little tiny little thing. I hope one day to just be living in a different area, because right now where I'm at. It's like 50 cents per kilowatt hour for electricity. Yeah, it's just insane. It's way too much money.
Insane. Yeah, that's California for you.
Yeah. So I'm hoping to at some point get, I've got plans of moving maybe a little bit into Nevada or just someplace else, and maybe the electricity will be cheaper and I can do some more things and not have to worry about that as much. Because for me, there's an equation there where it's how much is it per kilowatt hour, and then how much do I have to in the end sell a seed for based on how many seeds I get off of the plants and everything else. Because right now I sell my seeds for as cheap as I can possibly sell them for and still make money.
Yeah.
When it's, I sell them to a seed bank for $50 a pack, and there's only a little bit of money left there for me to make money off of them. If I had more space, I could grow more seeds, and then that changes everything.
Right.
But I'm limited where I'm at right now. And it's a good thing. I'm still at a craft level and things are successful and I'm doing good. But if at any point I actually just get to move, I can start having some more fun and experimenting.
Nice.
Doing a lot of things. But I was looking at that, building a whole new room set up with all under canopy lighting and mixed lighting up top, and my dream setup that I want.
Nice.
Yeah.
So if you had one piece of advice for younger guys that are coming into the industry that either want to be cultivators or they read High Times magazine, or maybe, I don't know if High Times magazine is still printed, but
yeah, I don't know if
they're reading the internet, they're reading social media, and they get excited about the industry, what's your one piece of advice for them? For somebody who did it very organically and, has done it for quite a while. Don't do it.
Don't. No, that's my first initial thought, and I'm just trying to be funny. But that is seriously how most times, if you caught me alone, just me and you ask me, hey man, I'm really excited about, I want to do what you do or get into something about the cannabis industry, I'd say don't. There's plenty of other things that unless you need to get into the cannabis industry, that's where you should be with it. It's really tough in a lot of ways. And there's a lot of stuff that it's kind of hard to even explain to people what you're going to deal with, what's going to happen. And to me, hindsight and stuff, it's not worth it unless you have what I have right here. Like, I can't do anything else. Yeah. I love this too much. If I wasn't doing this, I'd just be homeless somewhere growing plants, like guerrilla grown. And that's who I'd be if I couldn't do this anymore. What I would say though is, if I'm actually giving advice, and it's not just don't do it, don't be afraid to fail. That's the biggest thing that holds people back. And in a lot of areas of life is you're afraid of the failure and the consequences you're going to face by trying something. But what I've learned, and you've heard us talk about this, multiple times, we brought it up. When you make mistakes along the way, you learn things. You learn stuff about yourself, not just the subject. You start to realize who you are, what your character is, what your soul is, what really drives you forward. And there's nothing more valuable in life than you can learn than who you really are. And most people never take the time to do that. Most people end up 70, 80, 60, whatever it is, and that they've never stopped to be like, who the fuck am I really? Yeah. Not all this, but who am I really deep down?
For sure.
And making mistakes is what can open up doors and windows to you so you can learn who you are along the way. And so don't let the fear of the failure keep you from doing that.
So if you had one piece of advice for your younger self, I bet that's what that piece would be.
Exactly what that would be. I mean, there's a lot of, if I could go back in time, there's a lot of things that, don't date that girl, don't take that job. There's a lot of those.
Yeah.
But if we're just talking a generalization, I would sit my, 10-year-old self down and be like, stop being afraid to fail.
Nice.
Just for the rest of your life. Just let it go.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna fail at everything. It's only every now and then you have this rare little, it all lines up and you don't fail. Because no matter where, you can always look at something and find the failures in it and find the things you didn't do right. You just got to let that go. It's the easiest way to hold yourself back.
So if somebody's looking to find out more about you, pick up your genetics, where would they go?
Website is www.romulangenetics.com. We've got an Instagram account that's Romulan Genetics with the number 2 at the end. And Twitter is a little more complicated, but our website, if you go to the bottom of it, there's like little icons for Twitter and X and Instagram and all that. You can click on that. It'll take you right to it. The Twitter account is under Irish Jake, like you would Irish with an L and then my name Jake at the end of it. It's an old Twitter account.
You look Irish.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Very
Absolutely
Irish.
look Irish.
Yeah.
So yeah. And then how's Twitter working out for you? Good.
Yeah. I love it. I actually really like, it's a lot of home growers. It's a lot of people that are like almost like on an island of knowledge.
Nice.
And so there's a lot of people looking for help. There's a lot of people within that group that are helping each other out. So it's a nice little like segregated community in a sense.
Yeah.
Like every social media site, there's some violent people out there that, just wake up and want to be hateful. But it's been really cool. I've enjoyed using it like a community rather than like trying to sell shit there.
Sure.
I put posts up, but I go and like, I'm commenting with people and talking about other stuff and having a good time with that.
Nice.
And helping out growers and
cool.
Yeah. I don't really get that as much on Instagram. It's chaotic there.
It's a little chaotic.
Yeah.
It's a little censored and chaotic.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you so much for coming on the show today. It's been great having you. I'm looking forward to doing some breeding projects in the future.
Yeah. Thank you, brother. I appreciate it.
For
This
sure.
is great.
Glad we got to finally do this.
Yeah.
Right on. Thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe down below.